The facade crumbles. The chandelier-studded ballroom of the Blackwood Foundation's annual gala sparkled with San Francisco's elite. Tech pioneers, venture capitalists, and cultural tastemakers, all gravitating toward the couple at the center of it all. Julian Blackwood, founder of Horizon Technologies, stood tall in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, one hand casually tucked in his pocket, while the other rested lightly on his wife's lower back. Sophia Blackwood smiled with practiced elegance, her emerald gown contrasting beautifully with her copper hair. She nodded appreciatively as another guest complimented Julian on Horizon's latest breakthrough in quantum computing. After 8 years of marriage, she had perfected the art of being the ideal tech mogul's wife, intelligent enough to understand the industry jargon, charming enough to disarm potential competitors, and beautiful enough to make Julian the envy of his peers. "You've done it again, my love," she whispered as they clinked champagne glasses after his speech. "They're eating out of your hand?" Julian's eyes, a piercing blue that had once made her heart flutter, briefly met hers before scanning the room for more important connections. "That's why we make such a good team," he replied, already distracted by the approach of a Japanese investor. Later that night, as their driver navigated the winding road up to their Pacific Heights mansion, Sophia scrolled through social media posts about the event. Blackwood Gala was trending, with photos of her and Julian looking like the epitome of success and romance. Little did the public know that they now slept in separate wings of their home, that conversation between them rarely extended beyond scheduled appearances, or that the last time Julian had actually looked at her, truly looked at her, had been perhaps 2 years ago. In the morning, Sophia woke to an empty house. Julian had an early board meeting, according to the note left by their housekeeper, Delia. She sipped her coffee on the terrace overlooking the bay, reviewing her schedule with her assistant, Renata, via video call. "The museum board meets at 11. Then lunch with the Women's Leadership Coalition at 1, Renata recited. "Oh, and Mrs. Preston called again about increasing your donation to the Children's Hospital Fund." Sophia nodded, making mental notes. These obligations were the architecture of her days now, philanthropic endeavors that gave her purpose in Julian's absence. They had once planned to have children, but Julian's growing empire had continuously pushed that dream into next year. At 36, Sophia had quietly begun to accept that her maternal instincts would find expression only through charity work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her closest friend, Vanessa. "Have you seen it?" Before Sophia could respond, another message arrived. "Call me. Now." An uneasy feeling settled in her stomach as she dialed Vanessa's number. "Soph, where are you? Are you sitting down?" Vanessa's normally composed voice sounded strained. "You're scaring me, Van. What's happening?" "It's Julian." There's a video. It's everywhere." Vanessa hesitated. "He's with someone, a woman." "It's explicit, Sophia." The world seemed to tilt sideways as Vanessa directed her to a trending news article. There on her screen was Julian, unmistakably Julian, in an intimate embrace with a woman Sophia recognized as Camille Winters, the brilliant young neuroscientist who had joined Horizon's biotech division last year. The timestamp indicated the video was from just 3 days ago, when Julian had claimed to be at a conference in Seattle. Sophia's hand trembled as notifications flooded her phone, journalists, friends, even her mother. Within minutes, her private humiliation had become public entertainment. When Julian finally called, his voice was clinical, strategic. "Don't speak to anyone. I'm sending our crisis team to the house. We need to control the narrative. Not 'I'm sorry,' not 'let me explain.' Just damage control for Horizon Technologies' stock price." As reporters began gathering at the gates of their estate, Sophia sat motionless by the pool, watching her reflection ripple and distort with each gentle breeze. 8 years of carefully crafted identity, Julian Blackwood's perfect wife, dissolving before her eyes, Delia approached cautiously. "Mrs. Blackwood? There are people at the door. Mr. Blackwood's lawyers." Sophia looked up, a strange calm settling over her. "Tell them I'm not available." But Mr. Blackwood said, I don't care what Mr. Blackwood said. The firmness in her voice surprised even herself. I need some time. As the sun set over San Francisco Bay, casting long shadows across her manicured garden, Sophia realized that for the first time in years, she was making a decision entirely her own. The aftermath's echo for 11 days, Sophia Blackwood vanished from public view. The sprawling Napa Valley estate that had once been her grandmother's became her sanctuary while the media storm raged. Her phone remained off, with only Vanessa and Delia knowing her whereabouts. The vintage farmhouse, with its weathered wooden beams and wraparound porch, stood in stark contrast to the sleek minimalism of the Pacific Heights mansion she had called home. "Ms. Thorne is on line 1, Delia announced, using Sophia's maiden name, a small act of rebellion they'd both come to appreciate. Vanessa's voice crackled through the old landline. "The vultures are still circling. Julian gave an interview to the Chronicle yesterday, playing the repentant husband, claiming temporary weakness during a difficult period in your marriage." Difficult period. Sophia laughed bitterly, watching the vineyard workers in the distance. That's what he's calling 8 years of emotional abandonment? His PR team is masterful, Vanessa continued. They're painting Camille as the predatory subordinate. She's been placed on administrative leave while the board investigates. Sophia's jaw tightened. Of course. Protect the billion-dollar boy wonder at all costs. After hanging up, Sophia wandered through the dusty rooms of her grandmother Eleanor's home. She found herself in the study, where shelves of leather-bound books surrounded a massive oak desk. Eleanor Thorne had been a formidable publishing executive in the 1980s, breaking glass ceilings when most women couldn't even see them. Sophia ran her fingers along the spines of business journals her grandmother had kept. A leather portfolio caught her attention. Inside were Eleanor's notes for the literacy foundation she had established in retirement, detailed plans, mission statements, budgets. Sophia had contributed to this foundation annually, but had never truly engaged with its operations. Rain began to tap against the windows as evening approached. Sophia poured herself a glass of her grandmother's favorite whiskey and opened her laptop for the first time since leaving San Francisco. Thousands of emails awaited, but one subject line from Julian stood out. Settlement proposal. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Julian's lawyers had prepared divorce terms, generous by conventional standards, catastrophically insulting by others. In exchange for a swift, quiet dissolution of their marriage and her continued public silence, she would receive $20 million, the house in Aspen, and her jewelry collection. $20 million, less than 1% of Julian's fortune, less than what Horizon Technologies spent annually on office snacks. The rain intensified, drumming against the roof as Sophia scrolled through news articles. Julian's heartfelt interview had worked. Public sympathy was shifting his way. Comments speculated about Sophia's absence. She's devastated. Probably got work done before facing cameras. Another trophy wife replaced. Lightning illuminated the study, casting dramatic shadows across Eleanor's desk. Sophia's gaze landed on a framed photo of her grandmother receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, standing tall and unapologetic in an era when female executives were rarities. "What would you do, Grandma?" Sophia whispered. The answer came not in words, but in a sudden memory. Eleanor taking teenage Sophia to visit a women's shelter her foundation had funded. "Never let someone else write your story," Eleanor had told her. "The moment you surrender your narrative is the moment you surrender your power." A text from Delia interrupted her thoughts. Mr. Blackwood's lawyers called again. "They need your answer by tomorrow." Something shifted in Sophia's chest, a hardening, a clarifying. She opened a new document and began to type, not a response to Julian's insulting offer, but something else entirely. As dawn broke over the vineyards, she had drafted the framework for the Eleanor Thorne Foundation for Women's Empowerment, ADAW's organization dedicated to supporting women rebuilding their lives. After personal or professional devastation, "Delia," Sophia called, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Please contact Madeline Ortega. Madeline?" a formidable publicist known for her feminist principles, had once approached Sophia about collaboration on a girls' education initiative, a project Julian had subtly discouraged. By midday, Madeline sat across from Sophia at Eleanor's kitchen table. "Reviewing the foundation proposal. This is excellent," Madeline said, her dark eyes shining with approval. "But are you prepared for Julian's reaction when he realizes you're not following his script?" Sophia gazed out at the vineyard, where new green shoots were pushing through the soil. "For 8 years, I've followed his script perfectly. Look where that got me." That evening, as Sophia drafted her press statement, her phone lit up with Julian's name for the first time since the scandal broke. "Sophia, be reasonable," he began without preamble. "The lawyers need your signature. The board is getting nervous about prolonged publicity. I'm not signing." A heavy silence followed. "What do you want? More money? The Malibu property?" "I want what I've earned, Julian." Her voice remained steady. "Half of everything, including Horizon shares." His laugh was cold. "You'll never win that in court." "You didn't build this company, didn't I?" Sophia countered. "Who entertained your investors when they were wavering during the 2020 crash? Who smoothed things over with the Miyamoto Group when your team botched the presentation? Who maintained our social capital while you worked 80-hour weeks?" "That's not the same as—" "I'm holding a press conference on Monday," she interrupted. "You might want to have your crisis team standing by." After hanging up, Sophia received a call from an unfamiliar number. The woman's voice on the other end was hesitant, vulnerable. "Mrs. Blackwood, this is Camille Winters. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but there are things about Julian you should know before you face the press." 3 days later, Sophia stood before a forest of microphones outside the San Francisco Public Library, her grandmother's favorite building in the city. She wore a simple navy dress, her copper hair pulled back in a sophisticated twist. "Thank you all for coming," she began, looking directly into the cameras. "Today marks not the end of a chapter in my life, but the beginning of one." As photographers' shutters clicked frantically, Sophia revealed the Eleanor Thorne Foundation's mission and her initial $10 million personal contribution. She spoke calmly about rebuilding after betrayal, about women supporting women, and about transforming pain into purpose. She neither confirmed nor denied divorce proceedings, and she mentioned Julian only once. "I wish my husband well in his personal and professional endeavors, as I hope he wishes me in mine." What Sophia didn't reveal, at least not yet, was what Camille had told her, that she was just one of many women, that Julian had a pattern of pursuing and discarding female employees, and that several had been silenced through confidentiality agreements. That information was safely stored away, ammunition for the battle Sophia knew was coming. As questions flew from reporters, Sophia noticed a familiar face at the back of the crowd, Julian's younger brother Thomas, watching with an expression she couldn't quite read. Their eyes met briefly before he turned and disappeared into the busy street. That night, as hashtags about her press conference trended worldwide, Sophia received a simple text from her grandmother's oldest friend, Josephine. "Eleanor would be proud. This is only the beginning." Rising from ashes, the downtown office space for the Eleanor Thorne Foundation hummed with activity. 3 months had passed since Sophia's press conference, and what had begun as a personal redemption project had blossomed into something far more substantial. Women from across the country and, increasingly, around the world were sharing their stories of rebuilding after betrayal, professional sabotage, and systematic underestimation. "The Mercer Group just confirmed their matching grant," announced Priya Sharma, the razor-sharp nonprofit executive Sophia had hired as operations director. "That brings us to $47 million in committed funding." Sophia looked up from the scholarship applications spread across her desk. What had started as a foundation to help women recover from personal setbacks had expanded to include professional development grants, legal aid for those fighting workplace harassment, and mentorship programs connecting established female executives with emerging talent. "That's incredible," Sophia replied, removing her reading glasses. "And the Richardson settlement?" Priya's smile widened. "Signed this morning. $3 million to the women affected by the harassment, plus mandatory board restructuring. The Richardson case had been their first major corporate accountability project, a tech firm where female engineers had endured years of systematic discrimination. With the foundation's backing, the women had secured not only financial compensation, but structural change. The intercom buzzed. "Miss Thorne, Mr. Blackwood is downstairs again," Sophia sighed. Julian had been alternating between legal threats and reconciliation attempts since she'd filed for divorce and gone public with the foundation. "Tell security to handle it, please." "Not Julian," her assistant clarified. "Thomas Blackwood." Thomas, Julian's younger brother and Horizon's reluctant chief strategy officer, had always been the more thoughtful Blackwood. While Julian conquered markets, Thomas built sustainable business practices and employee support programs. Sophia had always liked him, though Julian's domineering presence had limited their interactions over the years. Send him up, Sophia decided. Minutes later, Thomas stood awkwardly in her office doorway. At 38, he lacked Julian's polished confidence but possessed a quiet intensity that had always intrigued her. His dark hair was slightly rumpled, his tie loosened, signs of the stress he'd been under since the scandal broke. "I should have called first," he began. "But Julian's lawyers monitor my calendar." Sophia gestured to a chair. "How can I help you, Thomas?" He placed a thumb drive on her desk. "Julian's planning something. The board meeting yesterday. He wants to discredit you before the divorce proceedings start. He's hired investigators to dig into your past, your family, even your college roommates." "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked, studying his face. Thomas met her gaze directly. "Because what he did to you was wrong. What he's doing to the women at Horizon is wrong." He hesitated. "And because I've always admired how you've handled yourself, even when Julian made it nearly impossible." The air between them shifted, an unspoken acknowledgement of years of careful distance maintained out of loyalty to Julian. "There's more," Thomas continued. "The foundation's success has rattled him. He's trying to convince major donors to withdraw support." Sophia's jaw tightened. "That explains the Westbrook Group's sudden concerns. He's scared, Sophia. For the first time in his life, Julian isn't controlling the narrative." After Thomas left, Sophia reviewed the files he'd provided. Julian's planned attacks were predictably vicious. Insinuations about her mental health, her fertility struggles, even her relationship with her late father. The foundation's legal team would need to prepare. That evening, as Sophia worked late, a notification appeared on her screen, a profile of her in the Financial Times, highlighting the foundation's rapid growth. The article described her not as Julian Blackwood's estranged wife, but as a formidable force in nonprofit leadership. A small victory, but significant. Her phone rang. Vanessa, calling from London, where she was setting up the foundation's first international office. "Have you seen the numbers?" Vanessa asked without preamble. 5,000 women have applied for our mentorship program. We need to scale faster." "We're trying," Sophia replied, massaging her temples. "But with Julian undermining donor confidence—" "About that," Vanessa interrupted. "I just met with Lady Caroline Winthrop. She's not just maintaining her commitment, she's doubling it, and bringing 7 other female investors with her." For the first time in weeks, Sophia felt herself truly smile. "The women are rallying. Not just women," Vanessa corrected. "Thomas Blackwood anonymously donated 10 million euros to our London office." Sophia's breath caught. "He what?" "Didn't want his name attached for obvious reasons, but our finance director confirmed the source." After hanging up, Sophia stood at her office window, watching San Francisco's lights twinkle below. The divorce proceedings would begin next week, promising a brutal fight over Horizon shares and assets. Julian's lawyers had already rejected 3 settlement offers. A text from Camille Winters appeared. "More women coming forward. 6 so far. They're ready to speak when you are." The next morning, headlines announced a seismic shift. Thomas Blackwood had resigned from Horizon Technologies, citing ethical differences with leadership. As Sophia watched the news coverage, her phone rang. Thomas, asking to meet. They sat in a quiet corner of the Japanese tea garden, far from corporate eyes. Julian's furious, Thomas explained. "He's calling it betrayal, threatening to remove me from the family trust." "I'm sorry," Sophia offered. "I know how hard this must be." Thomas shook his head. "Don't be. I've lived in Julian's shadow my entire life, making excuses for his behavior, cleaning up his messes." He looked at her directly. "Watching you rebuild your life on your terms made me realize I've been complicit too long." A delicate silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. "What will you do now?" Sophia finally asked. Thomas smiled, a genuine smile she'd rarely seen during her marriage. "I have some ideas. Ethical technology development. Maybe focusing on applications that actually help people instead of just making them dependent on devices." As they walked through the garden, maintaining a careful distance that nevertheless felt more intimate than any conversation they'd had before, Sophia received an urgent call from Priya. "Julian's gone nuclear," Priya explained breathlessly. "He's calling a press conference for this afternoon." "Something about evidence of foundation mismanagement?" Thomas's expression darkened. "He's bluffing. There's nothing to find." "It doesn't matter," Sophia replied, gathering her things. "The suggestion alone could scare away donors." She turned to Thomas. "I need to handle this." He nodded, understanding. "What can I do?" Sophia paused, studying the man she'd known for years but never truly seen until now. "Be ready. I think it's time we change the game entirely." As she hurried toward her waiting car, Sophia made 2 calls, first to Madeline Ortega, then to Camille Winters. The women Julian had silenced were about to find their voices, and Sophia Thorne was done playing defense. Unexpected territories. The boardroom of Ortega Public Relations hummed with tense energy as Sophia reviewed the testimonies of 7 former Horizon Technologies employees. Each document detailed a similar pattern: Julian's pursuit, manipulation, and eventual discarding of women who worked under his authority. The dates spanned 6 years, including 4 during his marriage to Sophia. "Are they all willing to go public?" Sophia asked Madeline, who sat opposite her in a crimson power suit. 5 are confirmed," Madeline replied. 2 are still wavering, afraid of industry blacklisting." Sophia nodded, understanding their fear. Silicon Valley's boys' club protected its own. "We'll respect whatever they decide, but ensure they know the foundation will support them either way. Legal fees, career placement, whatever they need." The door opened, and Camille Winters entered, looking both nervous and determined. Unlike the other women, Camille's relationship with Julian had been captured on video, making her both the most visible victim and the most vilified. "Julian's press conference is scheduled for 4, Camille announced. "His team has been calling journalists, promising explosive revelations about foundation mismanagement." Sophia remained calm. "Let him throw his tantrum. We'll proceed as planned." Their counter-strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than directly attacking Julian, they would expose the systemic problem. 30 minutes before Julian's scheduled press conference, the Eleanor Thorne Foundation would announce a major initiative to combat workplace sexual harassment in tech companies, backed by a coalition of female executives and investors. The women's testimonies, those who chose to share them, would illustrate why such programs were desperately needed. As they finalized details, Sophia's phone lit up with Thomas's name. She stepped outside to take the call. "It's worse than we thought," he said without preamble. "Julian's hired Bishop and Associates." Sophia's stomach dropped. Bishop was a notorious opposition research firm that specialized in character assassination. "What have they found?" "Nothing real," Thomas assured her. "But they're planning to target your grandmother's legacy. They've constructed a narrative about financial improprieties at her publishing company in the 90s. White-hot anger flashed through Sophia. Julian knew how much Eleanor meant to her. "He's going after a dead woman who can't defend herself. Typical." "I've contacted 3 former executives who worked with Eleanor," Thomas continued. "They're willing to refute any allegations immediately." Sophia leaned against the wall, suddenly overwhelmed by Thomas's thoughtfulness. Throughout her marriage, she'd been so alone in her battles, Julian's public charm masking his private indifference. Having someone fight alongside her felt almost disorienting. "Thank you," she said softly. A pause stretched between them. "Sophia," Thomas began, his voice hesitant. "When this is over, let's get through today first," she interrupted gently. Some doors couldn't be opened until others were firmly closed. Back in the boardroom, final preparations were underway. At precisely 3:30 p.m., Madeline launched their announcement. By 3:45, Asher Tech accountability was trending nationwide. The foundation's statement was measured, focusing on systemic change rather than individual villains. Though the testimonies left little doubt about who had inspired the initiative, at 4:15, Julian's press conference began, his familiar confident smile now strained around the edges. But the momentum had shifted. Journalists were already asking him about the foundation's announcement rather than listening to his prepared attacks. Watching the live stream from Madeline's office, Sophia witnessed the precise moment Julian realized he'd lost control of the narrative. His eyes hardened, his jaw tightened, and he abruptly ended the conference after just 12 minutes. Victory was sweet but fleeting. By evening, Julian had mobilized Horizon's considerable resources. The company issued a statement, questioning the foundation's political agenda and suggesting that Sophia's divorce demands had motivated the timing of the harassment. Allegations venture capitalists with ties to Julian began publicly reconsidering their foundation pledges. An anonymous source leaked Sophia's college medical records to a tabloid, revealing her struggle with depression after her father's death, an attempt to undermine her credibility. Through it all, Sophia maintained her public composure. But alone in her apartment that night, she finally allowed herself a moment of vulnerability, tears streaming down her face as she wondered if she'd underestimated Julian's capacity for cruelty. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Delia stood in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Ms. Thorne, there's someone here to see you." Before Sophia could object, Josephine Walker, her grandmother's dearest friend and former business partner, appeared behind Delia. At 82, Josephine remained a force of nature, her silver hair cut in a sharp bob, her eyes bright with indignation. "I saw the news," Josephine announced, settling herself on the sofa. "Julian always was a pompous ass. Eleanor would have seen through him in an instant." Despite everything, Sophia laughed. "I wish I'd had her judgment." "Nonsense," Josephine waved dismissively. "You were 28 and dazzled by a charming man. It happens to the best of us." She fixed Sophia with a penetrating look. "It's what you do next that matters." Josephine reached into her handbag and withdrew a leather journal. Eleanor kept this during the Richards lawsuit in '92, when that misogynist tried to destroy her reputation rather than pay what he owed her publishing house. Sophia accepted the journal reverently. "I never knew about that." "Because she won," Josephine stated simply. "Not just the lawsuit, but the war for her legacy." She patted Sophia's hand. "You have more allies than you know, dear. It's time to call them in." The next morning brought news that the Foundation's London office had secured partnerships with 3 major UK tech companies committed to implementing anti-harassment protocols. Lady Caroline Winthrop had publicly challenged other investors to match her increased donation. More surprisingly, a group of Horizon's female employees had staged a walkout, demanding internal investigation into harassment claims. Horizon's stock dropped 8 points in morning trading. As Sophia prepared for a conference call with potential donors, Priya burst into her office. "Turn on CNBC now." On screen, Thomas Blackwood sat across from a financial news anchor. The chyron beneath him read, "Blackwood launches ethical tech venture. My new company, Clearwater Technologies, will focus on developing tools that enhance human connection rather than replace it," Thomas was saying. "And yes, we've implemented the workplace protection protocols developed by the Eleanor Thorne Foundation." The anchor leaned forward. "Your brother has suggested that your departure from Horizon and subsequent partnership with the Foundation stem from personal grievances rather than genuine ethical concerns." Thomas didn't hesitate. "My brother is entitled to his opinion, but I believe technology companies have a responsibility to the societies they influence. Clearwater represents my vision for what that responsibility looks like in practice. When asked about the ongoing divorce battle between Julian and Sophia, Thomas replied simply, "That's a private matter. But I will say that Sophia Thorne's response to profound personal betrayal, creating an organization that helps others rebuild their lives, speaks volumes about her character." Sophia stared at the screen, a complex emotion blooming in her chest. Thomas hadn't just allied himself with her foundation. He'd publicly broken ranks with his brother, something the tight-knit Blackwood family had never experienced. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "You've turned my own brother against me." This means war. As she deleted the message, another arrived from Thomas. "Dinner tonight? There's something important we need to discuss." Sophia hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. The divorce wasn't finalized. The foundation was still vulnerable. A personal relationship with Julian's brother would add complications she wasn't sure she was ready for. But Eleanor's journal lay open on her desk, her grandmother's bold handwriting visible. Playing safe never changed anything worth changing. "Take the risk," Sophia typed her reply. 8 p.m., I'll send the address. That evening, as she waited for Thomas at a quiet restaurant in Sausalito, Sophia received an unexpected call, Horizon's lead counsel requesting an urgent meeting. Julian was finally ready to settle. A kingdom of her own. The settlement conference room felt cavernous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the San Francisco skyline. Sophia sat flanked by her attorneys, directly across from Julian, who hadn't bothered to make eye contact since she'd entered. Thomas occupied a chair in the corner as an observer, his presence a visible reminder that the Blackwood family was no longer a unified front. "Let's review the terms," said Magistrate Judge Elaine Foster, a formidable woman in her 60s who specialized in high-net-worth divorces. "Mr. Blackwood has agreed to transfer 20% of his Horizon Technologies shares to Ms. Thorne, valued at approximately $2.4 billion. The properties in Aspen, Martha's Vineyard, and London will transfer to Ms. Thorne, while Mr. Blackwood retains the primary residence in Pacific Heights and the compound in Hawaii." Sophia maintained her composed expression, though the magnitude of the victory was still sinking in. When she'd first demanded shares in Horizon, Julian had laughed in her face. Now, after 3 months of legal battles, public relations warfare, and the unexpected alliance with Thomas, Julian had conceded the most significant demand. Additionally, the judge continued, "Mr. Blackwood will make a one-time donation of $50 million to the Eleanor Thorne Foundation with no restrictions on its use." At this, Julian's jaw visibly tightened, though he remained silent. The donation had been Thomas's idea, a masterstroke that would generate positive press for Horizon while tacitly acknowledging the legitimacy of Sophia's work. "Both parties have agreed to mutual non-disparagement clauses," Judge Foster added, "and neither will publicly discuss the details of their marriage or divorce beyond acknowledging its conclusion." As the judge outlined remaining details about investment accounts and personal property division, Sophia studied Julian's face. The handsome features that had once captivated her now seemed merely a mask, carefully arranged to project confidence while hiding the calculating mind behind them. Had he always been this person, or had power transformed him? Perhaps it didn't matter anymore. After signing the final documents, Julian stood abruptly. "If we're finished here, I have a board meeting." Judge Foster nodded. "This concludes our proceedings. The divorce will be finalized when processed by the court, typically within 30 days. As Julian moved toward the door, he finally looked directly at Sophia. "I hope it was worth it," he said quietly, then glanced at Thomas with unmistakable contempt before departing. Thomas approached cautiously once Julian had gone. "You did it," Sophia gathered her papers. "We did it. Your testimony about Julian's behavior toward female employees was the turning point." "Don't underestimate yourself," Thomas replied. "You created leverage Julian couldn't ignore, The foundation, the public goodwill, the investor pressure. He hesitated. Dinner still on for tonight? She nodded, suddenly shy despite everything they'd been through together. I'll meet you there at 7. 6 hours later, Sophia stood on the balcony of her new Marina District apartment, watching the sunset paint the Golden Gate Bridge in hues of orange and gold. The past 6 months had transformed her life in ways she could never have imagined when that devastating video first surfaced. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages. Vanessa from London, Priya from the office, Camille from New York, where she was establishing the foundation's East Coast headquarters, each woman representing a connection that would never have existed in her previous life as Julian Blackwood's perfect wife. A special notification appeared, the foundation's quarterly impact report. Over 2,000 women had received direct assistance through their programs. 17 companies had adopted their workplace protection protocols. The mentorship program was expanding to 3 new countries. As she prepared to meet Thomas, Sophia reflected on a recent conversation with Josephine. Eleanor always said success was the best revenge, Josephine had told her over tea. But she was only partly right. The best revenge is creating something meaningful from the ashes of what was meant to destroy you. The restaurant Thomas had chosen was intimate and unpretentious, a family-owned Italian place overlooking the bay. When she arrived, he was already seated, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Congratulations again," he said as she settled across from him. "How does it feel to be a billionaire?" Sophia smiled. "Surreal. I keep thinking about all the women we can help now." "About that," Thomas began, sliding a folder across the table. "I've been working on something I'd like your opinion on." Inside was a proposal for a joint venture between Clearwater Technologies and the Eleanor Thorne Foundation, a tech incubator specifically for female entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The idea is to combine Clearwater's technical resources with the foundation's mentorship infrastructure, Thomas explained. We'd provide funding, training, and market access for women who might otherwise be excluded from tech opportunities. Sophia studied the detailed business plan, impressed by its thoughtfulness. This is remarkable. But why a partnership? Clearwater could do this independently. Thomas met her gaze directly. Because I believe in what you've built. And because I'd like us to create something together, something that reflects both our values. The implication hung between them that together might extend beyond professional collaboration. "There's something else you should know," he continued when she didn't immediately respond. "Julian approached me yesterday, offered to reinstate my position at Horizon with increased authority if I distance myself from you and the foundation." Sophia's heart sank. "And?" Thomas reached across the table, his fingers gently touching hers. "I told him I'd found something more valuable than the Blackwood legacy." Later that night, they walked along the marina, the city lights reflecting off the water. Thomas talked about his vision for Clearwater, technology that enhanced human connection rather than replaced it. Sophia shared her dreams for the foundation's global expansion. "It's strange," she mused. 6 months ago, I thought my life was ending. Now it feels like it's finally beginning." Thomas stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "I've wanted to tell you something for years, but it never seemed right. Even now, with everything that's happened, I'm not sure if it's too soon." Sophia felt a flutter of anticipation mixed with caution. "Tell me." "I've admired you from the first moment Julian introduced us," Thomas admitted. "Not just your beauty, but your intelligence, your kindness, your quiet strength. Watching you, this past year, seeing you emerge from Julian's shadow and create something meaningful, it's only deepened my admiration." He took a deep breath. "I know the timing is complicated. I know who my brother is to you. But I'd like the chance to see what might be possible between us, when you're ready." Sophia studied his face, so different from Julian's in subtle but important ways. Where Julian's eyes calculated, Thomas's understood. Where Julian demanded perfection, Thomas appreciated authenticity. "I'm not ready for promises," she said honestly. "There's still so much healing ahead." "I'm not asking for promises," he replied. "Just possibility." As they continued walking, Sophia thought about the unexpected journey that had brought her here. From trophy wife to foundation leader, from silent partner to outspoken advocate, from a woman defined by her husband to a woman defining her own legacy. 6 months ago, a viral video had exposed her husband's betrayal to the world, threatening to reduce her to a tabloid footnote, the billionaire's humiliated wife. Instead, it had become the catalyst for her reinvention. The next morning, Sophia stood before the Foundation's growing team, now numbering 42 dedicated professionals across 3 countries. "Today we begin a new chapter," she announced. "With secured funding and expanded partnerships, we'll be able to reach 10 times as many women in the coming year." As applause filled the room, Sophia's phone lit up with a text from Thomas. "Breakfast. Tomorrow to discuss the incubator details? Or perhaps dinner again?" A smile spread across her face as she typed her response. "Both." Later, walking through the Foundation's offices, Sophia paused before a newly installed portrait of Eleanor Thorne, her grandmother's determined eyes seeming to look approvingly at the organization bearing her name. Beside it hung a simple, framed quote that had become the Foundation's unofficial motto. "From the ashes of what breaks us, we build what defines us.